So, here we go again, episode number 2, and thank you to those who tuned into the first one of the Godcast. It was an interesting process, the whole thing, in terms of me just getting it out there. The first one kind of felt like getting it out there. As I said in the first one, it's difficult to, this kind of stuff, the kind of the staged video, it's very different for the live stuff, and the plan is to make this as natural as it is for me to now stand up and do presentations and teach classes and all that kind of stuff. That's the plan. So thank you to those who tuned into the first one. Thanks again if you're back. I have been out in the sun all day. I look like I've been ducking for chips. I take the sun very, very easily. As you can see, I've been out in the weather today. I've been lying in the sun, catching up on some much needed rest. It's been a tough week. It's been a really difficult week for me on many, many fronts. I am still on a healing journey. This is what this is all about. This me documenting this healing journey that I'm on. And it's been a tough week, but it really feels, even just the last few hours, that the worm has turned a wee bit, and I'm starting to feel like my momentum and my chi is coming back, starting to get back into it again. And the intention tonight, the plan tonight, is to talk about a couple of different things. I'm going to talk about the event that's on a week tomorrow, Breathe and Believe, which is up in Edinburgh, Portobello Beach. It's going to be a free event. Every Breathe and Believe that I've done since 2017 has always been a free event. And the last one that we did, I hadn't done one for about a year and a half. And the last one we did, what was that, 3-4 weeks ago up at Loch Lomond, where we had, I think we had 170 people there. It was an incredible day. And this one now, we're moving over to Edinburgh, again with the intention to do this free event. And share these tools and techniques, this work that I've been, learning for myself and then sharing over the last probably 6 or 7 years since the Vortex opened. So I'm going to start off by talking about what it is that I do. God bless my wife. I've said this many times, but over the years, the amount of times my wife has came in and she's basically, somebody was asking again today, like, what does he do? What is the work that Jim actually does? And it's difficult to explain. It's very difficult to do it justice and put it into words. You need to come and get the experience. That's what I always say. You need to get the experience. I saw it again last night. We had a Friday night in at the Vortex last night, which is really a snapshot. There's all different ways that you can access this work, but the Friday night in is probably an introductory to the stuff that I do. And the Friday night, it's the guided breath work into relaxation, into meditation. Absolutely. Every class that I do always ends up with some sort of meditation, and then we've got the ice bath, and then the sauna, which I'm only at the sauna half an hour ago, and the ice. And I do apologise about my noggin that's getting cut this week. This is not my intended hairdo. This is a sauna heat, and it's the Friday nights are fantastic. Bringing people in. There was a few newbies there last night again. A good mix of different people that had been here before. Some have been coming, really, really regular. One of the nights that I do Monday night is Boys Club, and with a couple last night for Boys Club who are here for at least a couple of times a week. I get to see these guys, so they're becoming like my brothers. Certainly my friends, but we're becoming like brothers. It's fantastic when people get in about this work and start to bring the tools and the techniques into their own life and start to implement them, and you see the benefits and you can see what's happening to them. And it's fascinating for me talking to them now. Some of them have been out about it kind of the last 4 or 5 years, and watching at different stages of their own journey and the processes with the tools and the techniques, and then how when you bring this stuff into your life and you get on about it and start to bring into your daily practices, what can happen to your life. It's fascinating. So the question of what it is that I do, the story is darkness to light. The first Godcast, I'm still getting used to saying that, the Godcast, that came through about a year and a half ago in meditation, the podcast and all that kind of stuff. And everything I do is with the intention, to reconnect people back to themselves. And absolutely, the divine that's inside every single one of us. That's the plan, and it still interests me, like using that word, the Godcast. I lost a few followers on Instagram when I put it up, which was fascinating. Just how a lot of people have never met me before, and then they kind of take a snap judgment. Again, there's so many connotations with that word God, isn't there? It just polarises and separates us, and the belief systems and all that kind of stuff. It's fascinating. But everything I do with this work is to help people, reconnect back to their true self, the authentic self, and that is absolutely, it goes along with that, the divinity that's inside every single one of us. I believe through my own experience that we come from a space that is divine. Call it what you like, the Tao Te Ching. You can't name it. It doesn't matter what you think you can call it. It doesn't matter. So it's difficult to express in words, but because of my journey, on that process, that path that I've been on, the darkness, the ego, and the 7 deadly sins, I suppose, maybe minus 1 or 2, but the whole, the journey that I've been on, from being that guy, right through, to the last 27 years, and probably particularly the first 18 to 20 years, really devotional spiritual practices and the books and the, not just the meditations, but the diet and the learning and the studying and, really going after it. And then what I experienced, which was, direct experience of the light, which I would call God. When you go through something like that, and then you've got both sides of the, you can see the two sides of the coin as I can, and this journey I'm on just now, I'm definitely still going between both of them. I'm not sitting here with a set of robes and a set of sandals on, sitting in meditation all day. When I had that first enlightened experience, believe you me, if I could get back to that, you'd never see me. I would be there all the time, but I'm in this human body. I'm on a healing journey. I'm still ebbing and flowing, going between the two worlds of the human experience, but also the spiritual one as well. And the work that I do, and the way that I do it, I don't know, there might be other people who are doing it. I've never came across anybody. There's certainly people who do similar stuff, and that kind of feeds into the breathe and believe. When people look at it and they think, all right, that's just a cold water group, or it's another breathing session, a guided breathing session. But I think it's the intention of what I do with it. I don't think I know it's the intention of what I do with it. Again, because of my spiritual experiences, my spiritual practices, and the way this has all came together for me. There's a really specific intention with that event next Sunday, as there is with all my work, and it's absolutely to go inside and to reconnect, out of the head, and reconnect back into your heart, back into the soul, and back into the real you, back into that space, that place that we all carry inside of us, that divine spark that we've all got inside of us, so that's the plan with all of this work. And the way that I do it, the way that it came about, it took a long time. It was probably before I really started sharing it properly, when the final pieces came together, which came on the back of the learning to breathe. It was with Wim Hof, and I know it's Wim's birthday. I saw that somewhere online. So I've been thinking a lot about him, in my journey with Wim Hof. I was one of the first Wim Hof instructors in the world. I was in the second group, the European group certainly. We did that in November, end of November into December of 2017. That was probably, that phase of breathwork and cold exposure was on the back of all the other stuff that I'd been doing for the previous, whatever it was, 17, 18, 19 years. And I'd had my enlightened experiences by that point. I'd had the real kind of, the massive penny drop moments and realizations and the direct experiences of all that I am. I do believe, all of that stuff that not many people, ever go after. And for whatever reason, I did. And that's why when I'm talking about it and the things that I'm trying to not just explain and do them justice, but actually give that experience to people. That's the plan with this work, is to give it to people. And it happens quite a lot, it really does. It happens fairly regular, and it's because of the way that I managed to work it out. When I think of the different teachers I had and how it started with the personal development way back, and I'm going to be talking about all these. The first one was basically, a wee bit about my story, but I'm going to be dipping in and out my story because that's you can only speak and teach from experience, always. And I had some fantastic teachers. I think back to the people that basically, got me onto this path. We started in personal development. A lot was like business philosophy. I was talking last night about Mr. Jim Rohn. who was really the only one who I didn't meet, one of my heroes that I never met. Jim Rohn taught me so many things, talking about philosophy and what you brought to the workplace and what you expected in your belief system and all that kind of stuff. So from personal development, and then eventually, very quickly into the spiritual development, and then that was the next probably 15 years, so the first 18 years, probably two or three, was with personal development, taking back your power, guys like Anthony Robbins and how you breathe and how you stand and goal setting and all that kind of stuff, which wasn't for me. But then, when I got into the spiritual stuff, the next certainly kind of 15, 16 years, it was all about the spiritual practices, the meditation and the going inside and the getting quiet, into the heart, into the soul, which was a healing journey for myself. I found all of my healing, or most of my healing. I discovered this week there's still layers to the onion that are still needing resolved and transcended. Fascinating. And for anybody who's on a healing journey, it's no easy. I know that. It's very, very difficult, and a lot of the times it seems to come in waves. When you think you've got it and you think you're there and you seem to find some sort of relief. I've got a couple of students just now who are going through that. They're really, they're dealing with stuff, childhood stuff, and you've dealt with things on a certain level, but it absolutely comes back at different stages. I believe you're ready to deal with it. And that's certainly been the case for me. So that spiritual path that I've been on, the healing that took place because of that, and because of my experiences, and when you tap into these higher vibrations, which, are divine, then the stuff that you're dealing with, the healing that takes place, and certainly took place for me, over those 15, 16 years. It was an incredible journey, and I'm going to be talking a lot about, different parts of it. I'm going to be dipping in and out of it, but the results that I got and the way that I was able to, get beyond all of my stuff, all of the different the traumas and the heartache and the heartbreak and the decimation and the mental challenges, in terms of mental breakdown and the mental illness, the physical stuff, the emotional stuff, the dealing with things and getting beyond things. That journey and the way that it unfolded for me. Eventually, by the time I got to 2000, and when was that, 16, 17, when I came across the Wim Hof method, I was at a period where I was really bored. I'd been bored for a few years after I had that, profound experience and not just experiencing the divine, but becoming it. I am that I am. When you get to see that, you might not be the full thing, but you're absolutely a part of it. And when you surrender to it and you become it, then everything changed, obviously. But after that, when you come back, it's the numbing effects of daily awareness. The challenge that I faced was, the realities of the world, and then how you navigate your way through this world when you've experienced something so incredible and life-changing that, when you go back to reality, paying your bills and thinking about, the tax man and, just all that kind of stuff, just the normal stuff, the stuff that you need to do to make the way through this, so it becomes very mundane. So it was a period of being really, really bored. And then in 2016, after training karate for many years, taught karate a wee bit. The man who I mentioned earlier on had a dojo, still has a dojo. I actually passed it the other day. He's got a new dojo the last couple of years, fantastic. Well done to him. But I ended up teaching kids classes and competition classes and loved karate, and then get away from that for a wee bit. And then, my passion for a long, long time has been jiu-jitsu. Hickson Gracie has been one of my heroes since probably 1997, 1998 when I first saw Choke, the documentary Choke, for the first time, and saw him in those waterfalls in Japan. This just bronze Brazilian Adonis, they reckon 500 fights at Hickson's undefeated. You talk about peaceful warriors, and I used to watch him, on the beach doing his yoga and watching the breath work and watching him being in the rivers and then seeing him, fighting. Any style, any weight, and just watching him, how he navigated his way through that. The whole process for me in martial arts and self-defence and all that kind of stuff, it was really Hickson that got me into at least the idea of breathwork. So when Wim Hof came up in 2016, it was in the back of me starting jiu-jitsu, and for whatever reason, the shape of my body, also the dojo that I joined, the gym that I joined in Glasgow was the wrong dojo, it was the wrong place. If I knew then what I know now, I might still be practicing jiu-jitsu, but the experience that I got with jiu-jitsu was just, it didn't work for me for whatever reason. Very quickly, I tore my knee in half, tore my meniscus in half. I broke my toe and I thought I'd fractured my neck. So I'm lying on the floor in agony, just tears of pain for 2 or 3 days in agony. And maybe me, and obviously didn't take pills at the time, didn't take any kind of medications in terms of painkillers. hadn't been at the doctor since 1996 when I kind of left that whole system and gave that up and took responsibility for my own health. And came across Wim Hof. His name was mentioned. It was 3 times in 3 days I heard his name. I saw it on YouTube, and the minute I saw it, and it just grabbed me. And the pain that was in, tears of pain, literal agony, thinking I broke my neck or fractured my neck certainly. Then when something like that comes up, and then I heard him talking about pain relief and what the cold exposure would do for you, and then listening to him, all these kind of the stuff that he was saying about the power that was in him, in terms of what it did for him, and then also the people it was helping. I was in, and from that very first day when I went and bought 40 kilos of ice and dumped it in my bath and jumped in it, we really not even know what I was doing, and then feeling when I came out, just the pain was gone completely. It was life changing. And then so from kind of December 2016, I started the fundamentals Wim Hof course really soon, probably the January time. And then just again, synchronicities and coincidences. Wim was coming to Edinburgh. He did a yoga studio up in Edinburgh, probably March or April time, 2017. And I wanted to just go and meet him. I wanted to just go and see who he was and really look into his heart, look into his soul, and see the man that I'd been watching online. It was just fascinating because the night before the event, I think it was on a Sunday, I finished the original, I think it was a 10-week course, 9 or a 10-week course, and it finished the night before. So the next day I was going to meet him, and I got up there a couple of hours early, went and saw him, kind of passed myself off as one of the helpers, and went in and sat with him, and he was just sitting playing the guitar in this huge yoga studio in Edinburgh. And I sat there for probably an hour with him, just sitting watching him, and very quickly, he tuned in. There was only maybe half a dozen of us in the room at the time, and he tuned in and he said, "What's your story, man? What's your story?" And I said to him, and I remember saying to him, like, "How far back do you want me to go?" And he says, "Tell me all of it," which was, it was really interesting. Just a man who at that time, it was before he really took off. But he was interested, and I told him my story, and I probably took 10, 15, 20 minutes to tell him my story, every bit of it. And then obviously the impact that the method in him that it had on me, and how my intention was to help him and take this mission that he was on to the world to help people. By that point I was absolutely all about definitely trying to help people, and I saw this as a huge part of it because it was doing to me how it was helping my physical pain, but also the mental health stuff as well. It was massive, the impact that it made in my life, and it was at a time when I was really needing something. It was really profound. It was perfect, absolutely perfect for me. It was like a new addiction that just everything got better. And at the end of the story, with the twos were in tears. I remember him saying, like, "Thank you, let's go." There's a great picture that I've got where we gave each other a hug, and I was in tears, and I think he was in tears as well, maybe. And then with a great day, and I remember the first time I saw like a Wim Hof Method instructor t-shirt. The first group had been obviously just at the November time, and one of the kind of Scots guys who was an instructor. I was in the second, so I was probably the second or third instructor in the country. Back in 2017, I remember seeing the old Wim Hof Method t-shirts and thinking I'm going to have one of them. That was my next mission. And so that whole year, 2017, was all about becoming a Wim Hof Method instructor. And it was a next wave that I was looking for. It was the next wave of like momentum, and there's something that really got a hold of me. And the intention was to take it to the world. And that journey itself, there's many podcasts and stories, loads of good stuff and loads of terrible stuff as well. Loads of just horrible stuff that I wish hadn't turned out the way that it did. When I saw Behind the Veil, and I really saw, I suppose, Wim for who he was. He was very different at the start of 2017, and then he went on a world tour over to America, and I watched him, and I just some of the things that he was doing, and some of the people he was spending time with, and some of the things he was saying. By the time I met him for the Masters, I met him again at the Easter time, back over to his house to do the advanced course, which is 2 days talking about science. And I remember sitting thinking, why are we here? I just want to sit in the ice and help people with 2 days of science, learning science. And for me, I wasn't educated. I used to go to school to see my wife or play football, so it wasn't really, it was a surprise, but then realising the depth of what was involved in it, and I had to go and learn like third year university biology for the rest of that year. I had to come back and then start you know, like the information he'd given us, and then go and learn. You know, I didn't know what the nervous system was, in, like the sympathetic nervous system, or the parasympathetic nervous system, and then the stress responses and the different levels to the immune system. You know, so it was. I remember sitting. I've still got them all. I've still got the mind maps of all the different. I would go and look up a word on Google. You know, what is the first level of the immune system, and look it up, and then do a mind map just on the immune system, and learn all these big kind of scientific words, and really educate myself. So that the time I went to Poland in 2017 November time, you know, I was ready, and you know, that week in itself, by the time I saw being with one of my other instructors, probably when was that, April, May, June time probably, and then by the time it was probably 6-7 months later, by the time we went to Poland, one was a very different man altogether, and I started to see sides to him that I didn't like. You know, the drinking and the alcohol was one of them. When I met him in April time, I actually took him a bottle of whiskey, a bottle of 16-year-old Lagavulin, as a gift for a Scotsman, you know, to say thank you. And I remember his girl Erin at the time, she was delighted with it, but one was offended by it. I remember him being offended, as if like, no, and there's obvious reasons to that. And then by the time he came over and I saw him over in you know, in Poland at the instructors, then he appeared back for his world tour. And the story with that happening, how he appeared, I could feel him coming up the mountain almost. And we were doing our science presentations, which everybody was terrified of. And he came through the doors, and there's a great story to go with all that. The next presentation, I did the presentation in front of him, and it was a really interesting week, and I got to see a lot of things that I didn't like, particularly with him, if I'm being honest. You know, and the way he behaved and how he conducted himself and how he spoke and the language they used and all sorts of different stuff. I met some incredible people, and as always, it was about the journey for me and the experience for me and what I became, because it was a huge learning curve. It was a hugely challenging physical, in terms of physical that week, being in that level of cold, you know, those alpine snow melt kind of running streams, and up there at night time, put you into these pools, and you know, try to break you. You know, the acclimatisation day where you're up in this mountain for 4 or 5 hours in a pair of shorts. My hands have never been the same since. You know, I had lightweight cycling gloves, and it was minus. I say it was minus 30 or 41 wind chill. I might be wrong. I remember that at the time, as one of the lads had said, that's how cold it was. It was certainly life-threatening, and the whole week, you know, in terms of being there and the people that I met, and you know, some of them are still some of my closest friends to this day. I learned a lot in that week, and then when I came back, it was a massive letdown, the way they did it at the time. They were still learning as well, you know, they really were. The academy and all that kind of stuff, they were still learning how to do it. But the way that it happened, the way that I came back, in terms of, I came back there ready to change. I can remember sitting in Wim's house, and you're ready to go to war. You know, it was like let's go. You know, let's go, and you know, let's change it, let's make it better. And when you were in Wim's house in Poland, and he was sitting in front of that fire, and the way that he spoke, you know, it was really, really powerful. And then, you know, the whole letdown when I come back, and then, you know, the next probably year or so, the things that happened, and you know, my relationship with Wim personally, and the way he let me down and all that kind of stuff, it soured things really, really quickly. And at the same time, you know, I had these tools and techniques that were helping me so much, and I was really absolutely like hell-bent and passing them on to as many people as I could, helping as many people as I could with these tools and techniques. And nobody really knew about it. You know, nobody was doing breath work, nobody was really doing cold exposure at all. And at the same time, you know, I was probably previous to that, summer of 2016, as part of your training, then you had to really start to take groups, you know, through the Wim Hof method experience, so you could go. By the time you went there, you were schooled and you were well versed in how to communicate the science and Wim's story and all his records. All that kind of stuff. A lot of his fiction, you know, a lot of stuff that he talks about, and some of it's true, but a lot of it. So there was all that stuff you were preparing. So the Breathe and Believe that's going on next Sunday, that started in 2016 for me. You know, everything that I'd learned in terms of the meditation and the spirituality, and you know, like, and then we added into that the breath work and the cold exposure, and the bridge inside and switching off your nervous system so you could get properly into meditation for a lot of people. You know, it was a great time. But 2016 was when I started doing classes. So the Breathe and Believe, that class, that concept and that idea and that actually name for the workshop, that's when it came through. You know, like taking people with the breath, reconnecting them back into themselves with the breath, obviously using the cold exposure to empower you and all the benefits of cold exposure. But it was all about taking back your power. It was all about, you know, reconnecting back to the true power that's in every single one of us. And probably I did maybe 7 or 8 classes that I did, between even one-on-ones, but groups as well, where you'd bring people out and take them through the ice baths and all that kind of stuff. So that by the time it came to 2017, when I came back as a Wim Hof Method instructor, there was a mission at the time that had just appeared. I was actually getting all my fillings taken out with a holistic dentist in Glasgow, Mr. Stuart Wright, who is an absolute force for good, holistic dentist who's based up in Oban now. And he had I believe it's a biodynamic farm up in the west coast, and just as I was leaving, he handed me a wee black and white leaflet that basically said, you might be interested in this, and it was a mission called Heal Scotland. And the lady who was running it, Lilia Sinclair, her number was on. I gave her a phone and basically said to her, look, what's happening, what are you up to? And they had a 12-week course or a programme just about to start, and the intention was for them to bring people in and help them, you know, with all these different tools, techniques and modalities, you know, to basically, you know, heal themselves. It was people from all over the world, and how it was going to work was it was going on Stuart and Helen's farm up at Balmollock Farm, which is an incredible place. It really is. It's really, and I believe the Heal Scotland mission is still there. But it was an incredible place, and the intention was to bring people in from all over the world, and also bring like teachers and healers in from all over the world, who would come in and give their time up for free, and then bring these people in, and then give them all this stuff that was going to heal them from all sorts of stuff. You know, there was everything from cancers to, there was everything that was there. There was, I can't mind how many people was on. It may have been 10, 15 people on it, from all over the world, from, you know, America, Los Angeles. There was people from the Canary Islands. There was a lot of Scottish people, and you know, it just, again, the timing was perfect. When I phoned Lilia, I spoke to Lilia for the first time, within about a week, it might even been the same week, I ended up there on the Friday night. I drove up there on a Friday night because she was already doing the cold exposure and the Wim Hof method, and because I was one of the first instructors in the world, and because of my experience with all the other stuff, it was a beautiful time, and it was an exciting time, and the partnership was formed. Where I went up, took the first night was in a hairdresser's, you know, took all these women in Waynes through a breathing session. It was for free. Everything I did was for free at that point. I wasn't charging any money for anything. Everything I did for Heal Scotland was for free. And the Friday night, and then the Saturday morning we ended up doing a session in like a church hall, and then we put them into is it Loch Gilp, I think it is, a freezing cold, like kind of stormy morning, this freezing cold loch. It was absolutely beautiful, you know, and that was a partnership, and you know, being part of this mission, the Heal Scotland mission, and the mission itself started. The Heal Scotland movement started, I believe, the next week or a couple of weeks later. We went up and did some work in the farm to prepare it, and then the opening weekend I went up, and I stood beside Lilia. I stood beside her. I was a breathwork and cold exposure expert, which I was, you know, at the time, and they had another probably 30 or 40 different tools, modalities, holistic practices where people would come in, and I'd practiced and trained in a lot of them as well. Some of them I hadn't, some of them were new to me, but I was there as the kind of the breathwork and the cold exposure guy. And then the 12-week journey began, bringing people in, taking their food away from them, you know, putting them on these cleanses and fasting them, and for somebody that's no well, you know, especially at that time of year in Scotland, it wasn't the best, you know, the weather and all that. It was what a challenge it was, and I really, my role I saw was to help Lilia get through. She was based up there, I was back down here, back down the road, but I was really just there to help her, you know, and help her get through it. And then at the same time, I went up and I think I did a weekend or a day myself. I gave my time up. I was up there a few times during the 12 weeks, got to know the people on the farm that were there, and you know, I did an event myself where people could come in at the weekend from all over for Scotland and basically get around about these different modalities that were there to kind of help people, and it was all for free. It was a fantastic time, and you know, the idea, in fact, it might have been the day that the Heal Scotland mission started. The first ever event that we're going to do was a breathwork and then a cold exposure. In fact, it was after the opening weekend. I'm sure that on the way back down the road, it was before the actual 12 weeks started. The people were going to be residents before they started it. And I remember we met at Loch Lomond. There was probably a dozen there. and at the time, it was like, right, what are you going to do? And it was breath work and cold exposure, and the way that I do it, reconnecting people back into their hearts, teaching them to relax, switch off their stress, the belief system, coming from the end, like manifestation, how you create miracles in terms of, generating the vibrations required to go to that end place where it's already done. That was the stuff I've been working on for years and years, and so naturally, the event itself, when Lily was looking for a name for it, and we're looking for somebody to call it as an event on Facebook, I think it was. For me, it was Breathe and Believe. That was my workshop. That was the thing that I'd been doing for the year previous. But it was the accumulation of the previous 18, 19, 20 years work, and it was now everything was getting basically jammed into this one session. It was probably about an hour and a half or a 2 hour session of guided relaxation, breath work. Absolutely the Wim Hof method breathing. But then once the nervous system was calmed down, into deep relaxation, and then once we had that kind of Zen aligned state with the divine, or certainly as high as good as you could feel, then it was into Loch Lomond, so that's where I did my first ever Breathe and Believe for Heal Scotland. And I did many of them, I really did, there was loads of them. We went up to St Andrews, we were over at Edinburgh a couple of times, we did a few at Loch Lomond, thousands of people over a couple of years, and up at the farm as well. Always for free, never any money. Was I think maybe 50 quid once for petrol was exchanged as a thank you, but I never ever took money. I just wanted to help, and that went on for a couple of years, and it was absolutely fantastic. It was a great. I met so many people. Some of them are still really close personal friends. Some of the people that I met through it, and then that was as with a lot of things with me. When I stand beside people, I'm not the best. It happened with Wim. Standing beside Wim, standing beside I suppose Lily with Heal Scotland. There's been loads of people over the years that have basically come in, and I do things a very specific way. And I think because I've been at the game so long myself, and I've got a really whether it's pig-headed or I'm so sure of what I'm doing, or because of the way that I do it, the partnership thing has never really worked out that well for me on any level. It's been fascinating to watch, and I always really did try to get people around about me and date with people, and I think it was maybe a self-confidence thing myself, where I kind of needed somebody to maybe almost do it with me, and over the course of the next 2-3 years, certainly with the Heal Scotland movement, where it just wasn't working for me. When I separated from Wim, and more or less fell out with Wim Hof, because of stuff that I will talk about on here further down the road, and what he did and how they conducted themselves, not just him but his whole organisation, and then and me seeing, when I met Patrick McKeown, when I haven't met Patrick, when I came across Patrick and I trained with Patrick through the oxygen advantage and then the Buteyko method, and then I really learned about how you're supposed to breathe, and the benefits of breath work. And at the same time, I realised that way before that, the Wim Hof method really wasn't the way. I believe it was the way for alpha males, or high levels of PTSD or trauma, or if you're really, really stressed, great. But for women and children or anybody with anxiety or panic attacks, then it wasn't the way. But when I met Patrick, then I realised why it wasn't the way. Manchester was right. I'd been teaching it differently, the breathwork, for a long time before that. And anybody that needs to know anything about breathwork, Patrick is a man. I mean, talk about a force for good. What a being of light, the work that he does and how he helps people. So, at the time where, Lily was absolutely shouting about Wim Hof all the time and how amazing Wim was, and I'm thinking, well, you don't really know him, you've never met him, and I've been in his company personally, and I've heard how he speaks, and I've heard how he conducts himself. It's like, unless you've met somebody, you can't really, you can't stand beside them. You certainly can't endorse them. I don't believe that isn't right, So there was a separation taking place, and also the way that I was doing it. And then, I suppose that the straw that broke the camel's back was that, Lily and Heal Scotland, they wanted to do Breathe and Believes with other Wim Hof method instructors, but this time there was a load of them in the country, and the idea was to basically do this workshop for Heal Scotland and call it Breathe and Believe. And at that point it was like, well, you can't, because Breathe and Believe is mine, and also none of them are qualified to do what I do, and because that's my thing, the way that I do it, and because of my spiritual experiences and my certainty as to how this works. When I say I see miracles very, very often, that's literal fact, that's a truth, so to just go in and take somebody through a breathwork, a Wim Hof method breathwork session, and then call it, my workshop, that was something that I absolutely could not, that I couldn't have that. So a couple of years ago, the decision was made to basically to step away from it and walk away from the whole thing. And it was another lesson in terms of me standing beside somebody and trying to be in partnership and just getting let down or getting disappointed and that's both sides of both sides of the fence as well. It's not just me. I am very, very difficult to work with this stuff. I really am. I get that, and I'm not going to apologise for that. It's just the way that it is. I've got a really specific way that I like to do it. I believe there's a way. I don't believe there's a lot of time for the fluff. Or ego, in terms of a lot of the instructors that I see on any fronts, not just Wim Hof method. There's massive ego in the Wim Hof method. All the kind of, you see it on the Wim Hof page, people sitting in ice baths for 10, 15, 20 minutes. I took a student who lives local to here, coached him for nearly 2 years for free every single time, literally saved his life, the work. And then Wim was doing an advanced course where it was a 20-minute ice bath, and I watched what the 20-minute ice bath did to him, and I'm thinking, what is the point of this? So much ego that it's just insanity. After a couple of minutes you're sitting in the cold, you've got the stress response, then for me it's time to get out. And I've never timed it once. I saw it again last night, like how long are we going to be in there? And I don't know, once your nervous system switches off, then it's time to get out. Once you're in that state of parasympathetic rest and digest, where you're actually not fighting against it anymore and the good stress in your system, then it's time to get out. But you're sitting for 10, 15 minutes looking at a watch and then, the pictures on Facebook and all the kind of stuff that goes with it. A huge challenges with all of that, so the breathe and believe, and the intention, with that whole that phase in terms of what I became during it, and then how I refined the processes. For me, cold exposure is easy. I don't really even talk that much about in terms of cold exposure. I still teach it. But there's so many people doing it now in so many different ways. A lot of the ways, probably 99.9% of them, I disagree with. I don't believe you need to do 40 minutes of breathing, like hyper stressful, hyperventilation, changing your chemistry to the point where it can literally kill you. The constriction that takes place when you blow off all that CO2, and then the pressurisation of the brain and the heart, especially after COVID. And especially after, for some people, the vaccination as well, or whatever the last few years, whatever it's caused it, hugely detrimental. And there's lawsuits going on all over the world just now with people that have basically died, with doing the Wim Hof method. There's a guy who is one of Wim's biggest cheerleaders, a guy called Scott Kearney, or Carney his name is, who has, one of his books was What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Stronger. Massive part of Wim's inner circle. And recently he's turned on Wim Hof, and he's documenting basically all these different court cases, and how there's one just now in America for like $70 million that they're basically trying to kick Wim Hof, and they were trying to kick him out of America, and Wim's taking no responsibility, and all this kind of stuff. And Scott Carney I'm not endorsing him at all. He's never been for me. I believe the guy would sell his granny to sell a book. He's not my cup of tea at all. But the evidence is there. In terms of how that type of stressful breathing and how it goes together, how it works, is hugely detrimental. So the bit that I'm at with this whole thing, and the experience that's going to take place next Sunday, and what I learned and what I became during the process, it needs to be repeatable. It needs to be something that you can basically, it should call you back. I taught it again last night with the Friday night in. The cold exposure, by the time you get to cold exposure, it should be easy. The breathe and believe is all about the breath work. Everything I do it starts with the breath. It's not just the functional breath, which I learned from Patrick McKeown, how we're supposed to breathe, changing that chemistry and breathing in the correct portions of your lungs, and then the pace that you breathe, and there's so much good stuff going on, which is for all of us. We all breathe. Every single human being on this planet we need to breathe. So to do it properly, and then when you start to learn the science behind it. When I met Patrick McKeown after my knee operation, when I sat for those 7 weeks, just every single day, just learning the different studies and watching the videos and seeing the benefits to every single system and all the different ailments that are basically linked to dysfunctional breathing. When you learn that properly, and then the way that I do it, because of my spiritual practices and everything I'm doing is to reconnect back to the divine, that fixes everything, so everything else is just foreplay for me, so that's why I call it the intentional breath. I use intention, to take you back into your heart and back into your soul, and absolutely, the meditation experience and direct connection with the divine that's in every single one of us, so it's universal, and that's why I literally see, miracles. Even just switching somebody's stress off can be a miracle, but it goes way beyond that in terms of healing. When you reconnect back in and you bring that light and you focus on the solutions, and you take your focus off the stuff that's been bothering you, whether it's trauma, whether it's heartache or hardship or whatever it is, then everything gets better, So when it gets to that point with the guided breath work, which it will do again next Sunday, at that point cold exposure is easy. Cold exposure takes one thing, which is a reason. What's your reason? What's your why? That's something that I come up with very, very quickly. It's quite fun. There's another couple of students that have been here. They're not instructors, but they teach it. And I've heard one wee lassie in particular, just verbatim everything that I taught them. She came here twice, and now it's as if it's hers, which really gets me when I hear people come in and they steal my stuff. There's loads of them, and I'm going to talk about them at some point, I would imagine, because it does bug me, But what's your reason? What's your why? That's what it takes to get in the call. What is your reason? Why are you doing it? At that point, it's easy. For me, it's physical pain and mental health. I don't have a choice. Well, I do have a choice, but the choice is to go through your day, grumpy and sore and maybe a wee bit down, whereas you sit in that cold, as I did tonight again, and you just feel fantastic. All the pain and inflammation is gone, but to get into the cold, then once you've got that reason in your why, and once you've got that place where you've experienced with the breath work, then cold exposure is really, really easy. It's dead simple, and then it's how you feel. As I always say, when you come out of it, once you come out the other side of it, it's like you put that cape on, that's like a Superman cape, and everything just gets better, So that's the plan. That is a plan with all of this work. That's a plan with this Breathe and Believe, this free session that's on at Portobello Beach next Sunday. We're going to come in. It's open to anybody. It's a free event. There'll be a link on this video. I'll ask the team to put a link on the video as to how you can access it. I believe there's nearly 200 people signed up for it already, and it's open to anybody over 15 years old. It's going to be absolutely based on, intentional living, in terms of learning the stuff that I've picked up along the way, and me explaining, how it goes together. There's certain things I believe that everybody should know. Things like awareness, the power of awareness, things like the power of intention, and then the power of alignment, what it feels like to be in full alignment and to be in that flow state and feeling good, where every single thing in your life gets better. That's the plan for a week tomorrow. A guided breathwork, so you'll leave with a breathwork practice which is based on the Buteyko method, and a wee bit of the oxygen advantage as well. Learning how the chemistry works, learn how to switch off your stress, learn how to sleep properly, learning how to get out your head, how to stop thinking, so you can give yourself a break from you. Very important, especially just now. And then at that point, once we go inside, once we use the breath as a bridge to get out of the head and quiet down the mind, and then reconnect back into your heart and back into your soul, then it's absolutely about meditation. And there's something about it, the reels that are going about just now, the ones that we did up at Loch Lomond, and you see people sitting in meditation, and then the amount of tears that took place on that day. There's a lot of tears just now, a lot of tears, and not all tears of sadness, a lot of tears of healing, a lot of tears of joy, a lot of tears of happiness. One of the lads last night just sitting, just bawling with tears of joy, just this big massive grin, and just, he looked about 5 years old. It was absolutely beautiful watching him, just really, this is a grown man, like a proper man, just so like bouncing with joy, literal joy. And watching what happens when we go inside and we remember, the power that's inside us, and in fact who we really are. That's my whole thing with this, is to remember, reconnect and remember the power that we are, but also who we are and what we are. So that's where the meditation comes in, to reconnect back into your heart and the divine that's inside every single one of us. That's the plan for the Breathe and Believe. And then at that point, we will jump in the water. And it's not mandatory, you don't need to do it. Cold exposure isn't for everybody. It's not, so if it's just the breath work, and for some people the cold is too much, the stress that takes place with cold exposure is too much, so I never ever pushed the cold exposure. I'm actually moving away from it a wee bit. If people ask, then I will teach it, but it's more about the intentional life. It's more about getting into the flow and feeling good, just with the breath, and your mind and your imagination, where you can go with that, and reconnecting and remembering how you're meant to feel, getting out of that head and back into your heart. Then if you're able and you're healthy enough and you want to do it, cold exposure, if you've never done it, I will teach you how to do it easily, so it's repeatable and you can do it every single day, so you can get the gifts if you need it. But you don't need to do it. It's not mandatory. You don't have to. So please do not come because you're a wee bit fearful of the cold. That would be a shame if you missed it, because it's all about the breath work. Everything I do is about where we go with the breath, and then it's how you feel coming out the other side of that meditation experience. Where you go with that, and then how you take that into your life, how you take that flow state of being in alignment, being connected to yourself, into all that you do. That's the plan. Everything gets better, and it all starts with the intentional breath. So that's the plan. That's the plan. That is what I do with this work. That is what I'm always trying to do with this work, is to help people find relief, help them remember how they're supposed to feel, how they're able to feel, reconnecting back to the goodness that's inside every single one of us. I believe we come into this world with it, but we forget, we get separated from it because of, all of the above. Whether it's the school system or the medication or the traumas or whatever it is, we get separated from how it's meant to be. And this work is about reconnecting and remembering back to the way it's meant to be. And the way, as I say, is the way. Everything gets better when we reconnect back to the way. And next Sunday there's something about, and especially because it's free for me as well. For the first 23 years it was all free. Everything I did was free. And there's just something about, serving people, not as a detriment to myself, but through inspiration. And sharing the stuff that it's taken me hundreds of thousands of hours and 27 years to work out, and gifting them inside an hour and a half or 2 hours for nothing. That to me is the juice that keeps me going. That's the fuel for my fire. And what we see is universally that every single thing gets better. That's a literal fact, no matter whether you're coming in with like crippling suicidal depression or whether you're at the other end of the scale where you're absolutely flying in life, you think can't get any better. And I absolutely know that no matter what you're coming in with, everything is going to get better. So that's the plan with all of this stuff, and that is what I do with this work, is to help people, reconnect back to the way it's meant to be, back to basics, back to nature, the natural path. Everything matters at a stage of the game. Your diet, who you're spending time with, what you're spending your focus on, what you're allowing in, which all comes down to awareness. And then how you bring intention into your life, how you make it the way that it's meant to be by your own work. Nobody's going to do it for you, unfortunately. It's a fascinating process. I've been watching my wife, God bless her, this week, where I've been really off my vibe, and just watching me. Every time I go to talk about it, I'm trying to kind of vent myself a wee bit or just express like how I'm struggling. She just disappears. It's brilliant. God bless her, because she knows, and I know that I need to get it for myself. It's me again, as she would say. One of the most profound quotes that I know, it was her years and years and years ago when she was going through it. She says, it's me again. I need to get this myself. And that's what this is all about. As Wayne Dyer taught me, self-reliance. That's what all this work is about. So you don't need anybody, so you can get it for yourself, so you can stand alone. What you need, what you're here to get in this lifetime. That needs to, the answers are inside you. They're not outside you. They're not in some life coach or some get rich quick. I see so many online just now, like get rich quick, come and get this new thing. Keys a fortune and come and get it, and we'll show you the keys. You can get what we get, and the answers aren't there. The real successes, the true successes is the realisation of who you really are and the power that's inside you, and it's inside every single one of us. And that, I believe, is how we fix the world. We reconnect back to the self, we reconnect back to each other, we reconnect back to the earth, and the breathe and believe, that's what it's all about. The reconnection, it's all about reconnection, because there's nothing missing, we've just forgotten. So that's next Sunday. Really excited, as you can probably hear. I can't wait. I love these events, and there will be others. The plan is to take it to the country. We're already thinking about St Andrews and Dundee and Inverness, and the islands are absolutely calling. Down that kind of southwest coast as well, down towards Dumfries, and also the Ayrshire coast as well. And that's just as a starter for 10. The plan is to take this to the world and help as many people as we can, as quick as we can, because there's no many answers out there, there's no many solutions. There are so few things out there that make everything better, and in my experience, this fixes just about everything that it touches. And those who do the work, because it does take work, those that get on about it, those that basically commit, which normally comes through a wee bit of pain and suffering, a wee bit of contrast. But if you've got enough reasons, if you've got a big enough why, to get up out of your bed and do some breath work and some meditation, and in the cold if you need it, but then change your life, change your input, perhaps the stuff that you're eating, the stuff that you're drinking, what you're watching, which, how's it making you feel, as always. That's the guide, isn't it? How is it working out for you? If you're rattling 6 and 7 coffees a day and you can't sleep, then the choice is dead simple. How is it going for you? And if you are willing to do something about it, then there is an easy way to do it. And the thing with this is, it should feel so good, this work, and it isn't work, but it's all you call it work. I call it work. But it should feel so good that it should always call you back. If you need to kind of force yourself to get up and do breathwork and meditation, then you're not doing it right. And if you need to go and sit and force yourself to sit in a cold bath, then it's too hard. This stuff needs to be easy. All the good stuff, as Abraham Hicks taught me, is downstream. The effort and the kind of the stuff that's upstream, the hard work, and the days of motivation for me are gone. I hate motivation. I've never liked motivation. Motivation doesn't work. It's too hard. Setting your goals and driving and striving. It's like it's not sustainable. It really isn't. But I love inspiration. I love to be in spirit and I love to be inspired because that's easy. That's when it comes through you. And then it isn't work, and that's where all the answers are. And when you go inside and you reconnect back into your heart and back into your soul, every single answer you will ever need is there for you. Nobody has your answers for you, and that's what this is about. It's about remembering, that power and taking back your confidence, taking back your certainty, taking back that belief system that you're capable. It's in every single one of us, but we've just forgotten, so that is a plan, to reconnect and to remember. And on that note, I'm going to finish up there. It's Saturday night, it is late. I've been on the go since early this morning. I send you love, I send you light to you and yours. God bless you all. If you can make it a week tomorrow, it'd be great to see you. And take it easy, peace out, and bye for now. God bless.